Hey now, Nick here, and today we're taking a look at Hordes High Command. And I don't want to tip the box all the way up because the cards inside are just going to go everywhere, so hopefully you can see it enough there. Anyways, Hordes High Command is the sort of sister game to War Machine High Command. Much like with the miniatures game where their Hordes and War Machine are two separate games that can be melded together, Hordes High Command can be sort of mixed together with War Machine High Command. Although I'll be honest, I haven't quite done that yet, and I don't know how the locations would work when you're mixing those two games together. So this review is just going to be about Hordes High Command on its own. I did a review of War Machine High Command, and it's a game that I like quite a lot because it's a deck building game that actually has more player interaction than your typical deck building game because you're actually fighting over different territory, which is essentially victory point cards. And I like the mechanism of having the different player faction decks, and you're buying from your own faction deck rather than a common pool, which makes your characters your factions and therefore your player tactics more unique than the other players. So with Hordes High Command, you can expect that it's a similar game, but just how similar is it, and is it still just as good as War Machine High Command? Let's take a look. Okay, so I'm not actually going to go over all the rules for Hordes High Command because this is basically a copy of War Machine High Command. If you'd like to have a rules overview for that game, you can check out my review of War Machine High Command, or check for the rulebook online or any number of other tutorials that the company probably put out. In any case, what I am going to show you is just some of the differentiations between the cards, and honestly, they're not that much. So first off, the Winds of War cards are really the same. I don't think there's any differences whatsoever other than the art, which is the art from the box, but even then they reuse that same art for every single card on the Winds of War card. So just as a brief overview, for instance, Commandeered Shipment, the deploy and purchase cost of all cards is decreased by 1 war, same as War Machine High Command. Arrayed for Battle, there are which nothing. It just means it's just a nothing happens card. The Appropriation, the cost of the first card you purchase this round is decreased by 2 command or 2 war. So these are all the same as War Machine High Command. Only the art changed, and there's only one piece of art. Now the locations also function in pretty much the same way as the locations from War Machine. There are a few differences, I think, but for the most part, they're the same premise. So, for instance, Abyssal Fortress, when you put it into your deck, you can spend it for 2 command or 2 war. Then at the end of the game, it's worth 6 victory points. If you are playing Scorn, this card is worth +1 victory points. So in War Machine, there was the same thing. There were certain locations that were only gave you a bonus victory point if you were of a certain faction. Castle of the Keys is the one that's for Legion of Everblight. The same exact card, but +1 for the Legion of Everblight, and so on. Alkir Subcontinent is worth 7 victory points, but has no special ability and is only worth 1 command and 1 war. The Bloodstone Marches, 2 command, 2 war, 6 victory points. When you discard this card for resources, you can discard 1 card to draw 1 card. That's neat. The Bloodsmith Marsh, when you discard this card for resources, you can draw 1 card. The Krail Valley, when you capture this location, you can move 1 friendly warrior card at this location to your discard pile instead of to your occupying forces pile. So all these abilities are very similar, if not exactly the same, from War Machine High Commands. Now, let's just show you some different faction cards. Now, there's just like in War Machine High Command, there's 4 different factions. We'll start with the Scorn. For the Scorn, here are their Warcasters. And again, all these cards are very similar to War Machines, just a little slightly different names. So these are Warlocks, not Warcasters, actually. We have Master Tormentor Morgul. He is Battle Group Commander. Friendly War Beast cards at Morgul's location gain +1 power. At Pain and Suffering, enemy cards at Morgul's location that increase health, decrease health instead. We have Archdomina Makeda, another Warlock. We have Lord Tyrant Nakaris. Again, the text is just much like in War Machine. The text is very hard to read on these cards, and they have the same color blindness problem in that you have to look at these colors over here. And if you're colorblind, you're going to have a serious issue building your faction deck. We have Tyrant Kirkus. We have Voidseer Mordekara. And then we get into the actual cards. We have the Titan Gladiator, which says, Bullheaded, skip your attack at this location. This is the only friendly card here, but it does have 2 defense and 6 health and is worth 2 victory points. Paingiver's Lash. You know, these are all really, really similar to War Machine. I think at this point I'm just going to show you the different cool art. The Rhinodon, the Cyclops Savage, the Bronzeback Titan, the Void Spirit Haunting, and the Cyclops Shaman. So much like in War Machine, these all have a different theme. So the Scorn are all about the sort of Cyclops and sort of barbarian type things. Then we come to the Circle Orboros, who are one of my favorites in that they're more of like elves who are like druids and stuff. So we have Kea the Wildborn for the Warlocks, Kruger the Storm Wrath, Baldur the Stoneclaver, awesome names, Chromac the Ravenous, and Monsar the the Desert Walker. I'm sorry. Now, I should mention too that if you are a fan of the War Machine or Hordes miniatures game, you're probably going to get much more enjoyment out of seeing the particular characters that each of these decks has. So some of the examples of cards actually that you have the option of buying and putting into your deck, you have Scarsfell Griffin, a Feral Warp Wolf, which is really cool looking. Great art in this game. Path of Stone, which is actually a resource card. When deploying or purchasing or rushing a construct, you can discard this card for 3 command or 3 war instead of 2, which is actually pretty neat. Let's see. We have Druid, Stone Ward, and Wold Sarkers. I will repeat. The text is very hard to read on these cards. The Wold Watcher, which is a construct. So these are a bit different than... Thematically, they are different from the War machines, which are more like steampunk things. Master Huntsman Pack. Debt to the Circle, Gnarl Horn Satyr, and the Warwolf Pack. So that's the Circle Orboros. Now, possibly my favorite, just because they have some of the coolest art in Hordes, are the Legion of Everblight, which are like evil dark elves, which are really, really cool. Well, they're like Arctic dark elves. Lilith, Herald of Everblight, the Grosh, Prophet of Everblight, Vale, Disciple of Everblight. Are you noticing a trend? Absolonia, the Terror of Everblight with pterodactyl wings. Then Saren, the Omen of Everblight. Then some of the examples of cards. Guidance of Everblight, a resource. It's 4 command and 4 war. That's one of those awesome cards. Again, same thing as in War Machine. The Hex Hunter, or the Hex Hunter Cult, which look like a bunch of monks that look pretty cool. A Seraph War Beast. Not like the Seraph from Magic the Gathering, obviously. A Carnivine War Beast. Longbow Archers. Blighted Mutation. Nephilim Soldier. Again, I love the art in this game. The Strider Rangers, pretty cool. Tariff War Beast, I might have actually said that one already. And Longbow Archers, which I did say already. And then finally, the final faction in this game are the Troll Bloods. As their name suggests, they are trolls. Dorka Kegslayer. Korluk Doomshaper, Venerable Shaman. Grizzle Bloodsong, the Fell Caller. Grim Angus. And Madrak Ironhide, Thornwood Chieftain. That is a lot of text for them to try and fit up in that box. Some of the examples of their cards: the Rune Shaper Sorcerers, the Champions of the Creel, Assemble the Chieftains, another of the 4/4 resource, which I highly recommend you get right away. The Frontier Scouts, the Bonds of Blood, Pyre Troll, and which is pretty funny because normally trolls do not get along well with fire, and the Dire Troll Blitzer. So, as you can see, basically it's the same. Without going over every single card, I can tell you that this is very, very similar to War Machine High Command. Different art, different factions, different thematic flavor. Let's get to my actual review thoughts, and you'll find out why I think this is a big problem for the game. Well, that's Hordes High Command, and I have to tell you that this review segment is probably going to be pretty short, at least shorter than most of my other review segments, because really, this game is almost exactly the same as War Machine High Command, and I really don't feel like retreading every detail of that review since I already filmed it. You can go and watch that. It has all of the same positives and negatives. It's a very good deck builder. It's solid. It has more player interaction than most deck builders as far as the combat. There's some very unique elements as far as buying from your own personal faction deck rather than a common pool. It has the same downsides as far as the game is definitely overlong. The player interaction can be a little frustrating for a lot of players because it's basically take that and there's a constant back and forth with not a lot of stability, so it's hard to plan long-term strategies. And like I said, it's just not going to. It also has the color blindness problem as far as the different faction colors that you need to build your deck from, but that if you're colorblind, you're just kind of screwed. It's just not going to work for you. So it has all those same positives and negatives leading up to, as adding up to it being essentially a good game. Here's the problem. The fact that it is exactly the same is the problem. It's why they had such an opportunity here to differentiate the two sets. Yes, they're supposed to be compatible, so it can't be that drastically different. They have to be able to mesh together if you want them to. And therefore, I knew going in that the core gameplay experience was going to be the same. And that's fine. You know, I've had other games like that. But the issue is that you have everything else about the game as far as like the artwork and the concept is very different. I mean, it's not that different, but you're in War Machine, you're basically like these very technical, tactical casters, the war casters who are controlling these mecha constructs. In this game, you're more of a shamanistic wizard or druid controlling these war beasts. And while it just sounds like two sides of the same coin, they had an opportunity to make it feel different, to have more unique power for the warlocks and for the different units that you have. But at the end of the day, if you did just a breakdown of every single card, I'm sure that the statistics would be different and there'd be little number differences between the units, but really it feels the same. It feels like I'm playing the exact same game, just with different artwork. And I don't know, I think they blew an opportunity there. I know that the miniatures games that these are both based on are also very similar. Again, they're compatible, but also that there is a different way that the warcasters and the warlocks actually manipulate their units, and that can feel very different. I don't think any of that transitioned into these games, and I think it's a wasted opportunity. I really hope that with the expansion packs that are coming soon, that they do more to add on to both of these and make them into their own unique animal, to differentiate between the different factions more, because that's another complaint from the base, or no, I shouldn't say the base game, but the War Machine High Command that carries over to this, is that even between the different factions, they don't feel that unique. And they could do more about that. And so, it's a good game. Just like War Machine was a good game. But if you're not really planning to mix the two together, I'm not even sure I could recommend buying both of them. Really, you would just buy the one that has the better art style because they're the same game. I don't know. It's just a wasted opportunity. But it's a good game. They could have done more. That's all. And I feel like I always hate it when a company blows a very good opportunity. And that way I'm actually more critical than if a company just puts out a bad game, because it was probably going to be bad from the begin with. Whereas I think they could have had magic with Hordes, especially since there was a good lead time between this and War Machine. And they could have made it even better than War Machine with the chance. Made it into like War Machine 2.0. But oh well, what are you going to do? I still recommend either of them. So take it for what it's worth. My name is Nick. This has been Board Game Brawl, reminding you to get out there and game every day and every way. Take care.